welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startups, technology and entrepreneurship. I'm Chandra Srikanth coming to you live from India's startup capital, Bengaluru. I hope many of you were inspired by that interview we got with Nandan and Rohini Nilekani on the art of giving. And I hope everyone is feeling benevolent and generous to just give away more, because as they said, the most important value of money is the power to give away. But moving to what we focus on the show here about entrepreneurs and startups, and the event that everyone is looking forward to next week is, of course, the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in Hyderabad. It's being hosted by India and US, and it's coming to India for the first time. It's being seen as a testament to the strong bilateral relationship between both countries. In fact, Ivanka Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be sharing the stage at the GES in Hyderabad. And in the run-up to that, we have a special guest on Startup Central. Edward Kagan, the US Consul General of Mumbai, joins us on the show today to really talk about the significance of the event and the possible impact. Mr. Kagan, thank you so much for joining us right here on ET Now Startup Central. I want to start with the significance of this event. The GES is, of course, coming to India for the first time. We are going to have Ivanka Trump here, an entire delegation from the US. What, in your mind, is the significance of the GES? You know, what's it expected to usher in for entrepreneurship, for startups in this country?
Well, Chandra, thank you very much, first of all, for the privilege of being invited onto Startup Central. And I think that it's a great question, because I think it is very significant. I think a couple of things. First of all, you know, the Global Entrepreneurship Summit is the world's premier event to promote entrepreneurship. It's been held since 2010. We are very proud of the work that's been done in the past, but we're even more excited about this year's GES. I think the significance of having it in India is on a bunch of different levels. First and foremost, the US believes that India is a natural partner when it comes to promoting entrepreneurship. Indians are known the world over for their creativity, their energy, and their entrepreneurship. Being in India now for 3.5 months, I marvel at the energy with which Indians start businesses and the startup culture here, but startup culture not just in the tech space, which is where people usually think of it, but across the board. There's just a huge amount of energy and creativity. And so from an American perspective, we see India as a natural partner, both so that we can learn from the experiences in India, we can share American experiences, but also it's worth remembering that a big chunk of the GES is about bringing entrepreneurs from the world over to India to participate with American and Indian entrepreneurs. I think the significance of doing it here is, first of all, this is something that was agreed to between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi during Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US. It's something that we see as a very important step in building the broader people-to-people ties that are so important in the relationship, and building on the strengths, the energy, the creativity, the commitment to free markets, and to supporting entrepreneurship that I think is a hallmark in both countries. It also is a sign of the respect that the world has for India's strengths when it comes to entrepreneurship. The fact that people from almost 140 territories and countries around the world are coming to India, I think is a reflection of the fact that around the world, India is seen as a country that has great expertise in supporting entrepreneurship, and people want to learn from that.
Right, you spoke about the significance, but tell us about the tangible benefits that this event will bring. I mean, either in terms of investment or others. What sort of tangible benefits can we expect from an event of the scale of GES?
Look, that's a really good question. And, we've been working in the last 6 to 8 weeks, we've been working very much on what we call the road to GES. And we've been working with Niti Aayog, with FICCI, with other organizations, as well as things that we at the consulate here and in the US mission in India as a whole are doing to support what we call the road to GES, to make sure that we're highlighting the importance of GES, the potential that it brings, and showing a broader commitment to supporting entrepreneurship. As important as the road to GES is, or has been and is, as important as GES itself will be, I think that what we see is that the road from GES going forward is also very important. It's very important that we not just have a meeting, but that there be tangible outcomes. I think that the most important tangible outcome often is intangible, and that is the relationships that are built between the entrepreneurs. You know, we've done this now in a number of different places. The most recent one last year was in Silicon Valley, and I think that the most important outcomes really are the relationships that come between the entrepreneurs, and there's about 1,200, as well as the 300 some odd people who are from financiers, incubators, who can provide some of the important ballast necessary to support this going forward. So those relationships are hard to predict. And part of why we do this is to get all these incredibly creative, energetic people together, because you never know exactly what's going to happen and where the relationships will form. I think what's going to be important, though, is making sure that at a government level, we and India and other countries continue to create the right policy framework to support entrepreneurship, that we support incubators, that we support the mechanisms to support financing, and make sure that entrepreneurs have the support they need. And I think it's particularly important this year because the theme this year is Women First, Prosperity for All. And that's very important, and we're very proud of the fact that working with Niti Aayog, working with the government of India, we've put together a delegation where more than half of the entrepreneurs are women, that will be very focused on how to support women entrepreneurs, how to address some of the particular concerns and challenges they have, but also make sure that when we think of entrepreneurship, that we're thinking of creating opportunities for everyone in all of our society.
Last question, one crucial aspect of Indo-US ties has of course been around visa. In the past, it's really helped not just Indian IT companies, but also US companies such as Google, Facebook, and Microsoft get access to technology talent from India. But in the last few months, there's been increasing talks of protectionism. A lot of countries have turned insular. Any message that we can expect from the US government next week on the way forward as far as the visa program is concerned, particularly the H-1B visa, which has been under the spotlight for the last few months?
Well, I think a couple of things are really important to focus on, Chandra. One is that while there's been a huge amount of discussion, even in my brief time in India, about H-1Bs, I think it's very important to recognize that while the president has directed a review of the program, there's been no actual change to the program. The review is still ongoing, and it has not led to any outcome yet. For the time being, we continue to process H-1B visas. We process quite a few at this consulate and other visa issuing posts in India. We have done a couple of things. One is to tighten some of the review of companies that are petitioning for H-1Bs to make sure that recipients are not exploited or abused when they get to the United States. We want to make sure that the program operates fairly and transparently, but I think that there is a clear understanding on the part of the United States that these kinds of exchanges have tremendous value. And we want to make sure that as we go forward, that we're unlocking the most value in the best way for our country. I think more broadly, as you know, large amounts of Indians travel to the United States every year. Large amount of Americans come to India. We think that this is very positive for both countries. We're very committed to supporting that. We're very proud of the fact that India is the second largest source of foreign students in the United States. As I think you may have seen last week, it was announced there's 186,000 Indians studying in the United States right now. We think that's very, very good for the United States. We think it's very good for India. And so we want to support that. We're very happy of our track record of issuing student visas to deserving students and those who qualify. And so we think that this is something that's very positive in both countries. I think that while there's been a lot of concern on your broader point, I think that it's important to look at the facts, and I think the facts are very clear, that the U.S. continues to be a very hospitable place. The U.S. continues to be a welcoming place for those who qualify, and I'm very confident that will continue.
On that note, thanks so much for joining us in this edition of Startup Central. We will, of course, look forward to covering the GES next week in Hyderabad. But moving away from that story to some productivity hacks that all of us desperately need in an era of social media where we are constantly distracted by different platforms. And who better to answer that than productivity coach David Allen, author of the famous book Getting Things Done, or GTD as it's known. My colleague Rahul Dama caught up with him this week to find out what productivity hacks you and I can use to really keep the distractions at a minimal level and get things done. Listen in.
Because of my experience in the martial arts and meditative practices and so forth, I got used to what it was like to have a clear head, be free in your mind, which actually happens to be the most productive state to do anything from, is when you're not distracted, when you can fully focus on cooking rice or being with your kids or hitting a ball or whatever, or writing a business plan. You know, you just need to be present with that. And so I got hungry to find those techniques for myself first. And after all my professions, I became a consultant. And so I turned around, and the techniques I discovered for myself that gave me more control, more focus, more ability to focus on the meaningful stuff, did exactly the same thing for all of my clients. So that started to work as a model that started to work better and better. And then someone in the big corporate training world found out what I was doing, said, hey, design a training around this. So I said, okay.
So now you have an entire program around
Now we have, you know, that threw me into the corporate training world. And then I spent 30 years really sort of not just developing it, I really developed it in the first few years, but figuring out how to build a model to transfer it to people, because you're not born doing these practices. They're easy, but you're not born doing them. You have to learn it, like you have to learn to play cricket, you have to learn to play the violin. You know, they're simple moves, but you can get better and better and better at them, and you're not born doing them. And I just discovered what those moves are.
Got it. You know, I know you wouldn't want to break the suspense. You'd want people to you know, get hold of your book, but 2 or 3 hacks that you'd want to give in terms of getting things done for oneself, really, you know. Come to the organization's part in a while, but very personally, when you look at, what are those 2 or 3 tips that you think will?
Well, let me give you one big tip.
Yeah.
Your head is a bad office, and everybody's trying to keep so much stuff in your head, and your brain did not evolve to remember, remind, prioritize, or even understand relationships between more than about 4 things. Cognitive science has now validated that. I just figured that out 30 years ago. So basically, a lot of this is get it all out of your head, especially if you're like an entrepreneur or somebody who's moving fast in their career or their life. So many things come at you so fast, and you have to rethink, recalibrate, refocus all the time, and in your head, you can't do it.
We're going to use some of those hacks right here. Hopefully it makes us more productive. But on that note, take a break and come back. We have an interview with MobiKwik and one more on a startup that wants to bring women back into the workforce. So women on a sabbatical who want to come back, this is a platform that you need to use. Take a break and come back to Startup Central. Welcome back to ED Now Startup Central, and we're focusing on fintech in this segment, where we bring you a conversation with MobiKwik co-founder Bipinpreet Singh. My colleague in Delhi, Ritu Paranath, caught up with him to understand what MobiKwik's plans are as far as the credit space is concerned, because while last year was all about shopping and cashbacks and how to really draw customers to the platform, the stickiness will come from credit-based offerings, and that's something that MobiKwik is going to look at. And he also spoke to her about competition from global players such as WhatsApp and PayPal. Listen into this conversation.
We already have a virtual Visa card which is already out from MobiKwik. Right. It's currently in beta, not available to all the users, but it should be available in the next 20 to 30 days.
And sir, what do you have to say about WhatsApp and PayPal launching its services in India?
More the merrier. There are, I think the fact that global companies like Google, WhatsApp, PayPal, they are all launching in India, it means that Indian payments market is very big, and it means that there is a lot of revenue to be made. It means also that it's quite early because multiple people are entering into the market. But I think I must say one thing, that Indian companies like ours, which have worked and gained a lot of local knowledge and built technology which is customized for the Indian users, have a much bigger advantage.
So when we talk about enhancement of transactions, there are still restrictions, like I cannot transact money from MobiKwik to Paytm. So what do you have to say about that?
That's going away. That's going away. RBI in its new guidelines is making all wallets and banks interoperable, which means that you should be able to transfer money from any wallet to any other wallet, or even from a bank to a wallet, or a wallet to a bank account. This will bring about a lot of confidence in the user acceptance.
And so when we talk about RBI regulations, there's also a cap on the amount of money that we can transfer from the e-wallets to the bank. So do you think that should be removed?
I think that cap, in my view, is going away, because if you have a KYC wallet, now I don't think there will be any cap in transferring money to a bank account. So I think that's a very positive move.
People are moving towards digital transactions, people are preferring online transaction, but when we talk about it, there's still a huge section of the society who do not have this access because of connectivity. So what do you have to say about that?
So I think it's in India we have currently 400 million smartphones, and we have roughly around 100 million users who can do digital transactions. Not all 100 million are doing. So clearly more than 60% of India doesn't even have smartphones.
A story that a startup that's solving a very crucial problem, how to get back women who quit the workforce. Now, this is a pressing issue because even if you look at the work pyramid at the beginning level, at the starting level, you have a lot of women who join the workforce, but they invariably drop out just as they are scaling up in the organization because of personal issues, because of family, various reasons, and for them to come back has been an uphill task. But this startup called Jobs for Her tries to come up with solutions on how to bring back women in the workforce. We caught up with Jobs for Her founder to find out how this happens, the kind of solutions available to women who've taken a break and want to come back.
It's a big challenge for women to get back to work, and by the way, it's not just India, it's worldwide. Because I think the biggest problem that women face when they take a break and then they want to come back is a complete loss of confidence. You feel like, one, you don't remember anything that you had studied or you had worked on before. Two, that the world has moved on without you, especially if you were in any sort of job that's related to technology, and frankly, which job has not been touched by technology. And third is the guilt, right? Because you keep wondering whether you will stop being a good mother or a good wife or a good daughter-in-law, and how will you balance it? So all of this really results in this big loss of confidence that you go through, which is what is really keeping women from getting back to work.
Got it. You know, when did you decide really that, you know, you'd want to address a problem like this? I'm sure every second working woman would deal with this. When did you realize that you'd want to get on and start working with companies, with women who want to get back and ensure that it's a smoothness journey really?
Sure, actually I took a break in my own career for 3.5 years. I mean, an idea like this frankly can only be born out of personal experience. When I took that break for 3.5 years, and then the day I realized that that for my own self-identity and my own sense of self-fulfillment, I need to get back to work. I actually started asking my friends around me why they had dropped out, right? They told me a lot of the challenges that they were facing to get back to work, and I started researching the problem. I found out that there are 10 million women in India who are graduates and postgraduates but are currently involved in domestic duties. I found out that 50% of all working women in India, they drop out of the workplace in 3 years. Frankly, this is a talent force that India cannot afford to lose. And look at the talent pool. They're qualified, capable, experienced women. Well, so about 3 years ago, when I looked at my own experience, my friend's experience, and then the data, I knew I had to do something to do with it.
So, you know, how are you solving this problem? Do you work with companies because you have to sort of change the mindset there, and also work with working professionals who take that breaks? You know, how have you figured out the model that will really work, and what is working really?
Sure, actually you're right. We have to work with the entire ecosystem to make it happen. First and foremost, we have to work on that woman, because there are a lot of internal barriers that she needs to cross in order to be able to get back to work. Second, of course, are the corporates. I mean, when we started Jobs for Her, there were enough companies who said they don't want to hire women on a break, they don't want to hire mothers, versus today when there are 3,000 companies on our platform who are working closely with us to get these women back.
3,000 companies on the Jobs for Her platform who are working to get women back in the workforce. So if you're on a break, if you're on a sabbatical, perhaps this is one of the options you can use to get back to the workforce. But on that note, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Startup Central. Stay tuned to ET Now for news and updates.